Chapter 15. Meanwhile, the police had lent themselves to assist in the effort to track down the mysterious man that had gone on 2 rampages downtown. The amount of destruction that had been brought on by one man was simply astonishing, and had elevated the presence of the military, as well as the private security force that was on loan to the U.S. government by the Kane Corporation. Both parties had taken over the police station as sort of a makeshift war room. Dr. Wallace, Sam's former therapist, sat in a chair at the end of a small oak conference table, with 4 very stern-looking generals staring at him, expecting an answer. The room was also made a bit more intense by a younger-looking gentleman standing in the corner in a very sharp suit with a lack of expression on his face. Dr. Wallace was at a complete loss for words. His expression was one of awe as he viewed the security camera footage from the street and the various other bits of footage the military and the Kane forces had gathered. He knew what he was looking at couldn't be real. Humans can't do this sort of thing. But the deadly serious look on everyone's face in the room led him to believe that the footage was genuine. Finally, one of the several generals broke his silence. "Do you recognize this young man?" "I do indeed. This is Sam Rittenhouse. He was a patient of mine," said Dr. Wallace as he readjusted himself in a fake leather chair. Another general piped in. "We're going to need you to tell us everything you can about Mr. Rittenhouse, Dr. Wallace." I am afraid I can't do that. It would be in direct conflict with doctor-patient confidentiality." An apparent shake came over his hands as he fidgeted with his glasses. He had never had to pull that kind of card, with this many ominously serious people in the room. He knew it was a weak play considering the footage he had just seen, but hey, it was worth a shot. "Dr. Wallace, Sam Rittenhouse has killed over 30 men in the past 24 hours. I don't care about your damn oath as a doctor. What I do care about is stopping this monster before he kills anyone else," barked the general. "You can cooperate, or I'll have you thrown in a concrete hole for the next 20 years for aiding a terrorist and violating the Patriot Act." Dr. Wallace became even more visibly shaken after the general's stern and aggressive threat. It was without a doubt the most aggression he had ever experienced from someone towards him that wasn't a patient. "Easy, General. No need to carry this too far," the doctor stated in a voice that reeked of self-preservation. "I'll cooperate. Just tell me what you want to know." Dr. Wallace wasn't a cowardly man, but he wasn't stupid either. They were going to get what they wanted out of him no matter what. No sense in making life uncomfortable. "Let's start with any medical diagnosis you've made on him," chimed in another of the generals. "I could write a book on Sam, gentlemen. He was a very deeply troubled man. His official diagnosis was that he suffered from severe schizophrenia, as well as dissociative identity disorder. He never really got too violent, but he did have some very rough times." "Doctor, could you translate that into English for us, please? We are soldiers and not scholars." "Certainly, General. Sam came from a very abusive home. He was treated very poorly from the day he was born. His parents didn't have the slightest clue that he was having issues, and frankly, they didn't care. It could have been a minor issue, but it grew with time. In fact, it became something quite serious. See, Sam hears a voice in his head. That voice is incredibly vile to him. It tells him that he is a horrible person in some of the worst ways possible. Sam was in constant battle to suppress this voice all day, every day. To further complicate the matter, the voice would often become too strong for him to suppress and would eventually take over his psyche," explained the doctor. "So we've got a nutcase on our hands." "No, you don't. Sam is a very capable human being. For the most part, he's smarter than your average Joe. However, this persona that lives in his subconscious is a very violent and destructive side of Sam. It calls itself Malice. That thing in those videos, that's not Sam. That's Malice." "If we're going to be able to get at this guy, we're going to need more info. What triggers his anger? What are some personal connections that he might have?" questioned one of the other generals. Any number of things can trigger his anger. He was always a bit of a bombshell when we were dealing with Malice. Anytime Sam felt like he was being attacked, Malice would step in and take over. It's almost as if Malice was his protector and tormentor at the same time. Malice viewed Sam as weak and yearned to be in control. "What stopped him?" asked the man in the corner as he stepped forward. I'm sorry, who are you?" asked the doctor. "My name is Kane. Earlier today, Sam broke into my building, killed several of my men, and destroyed one of my helicopters. He also trespassed on my property last night and destroyed a very important piece of research that my company has been working on for the past 20 years. I'm very much involved in this manhunt, so if you don't mind, what stopped him?" Kane brought a very cold presence into the conversation. He was an average-sized man with very dark skin. Dr. Wallace couldn't quite place his origin, but he had a very Middle Eastern look to him. His face was very young, but the streaks of gray in his beard and hair gave him an air of wisdom and age that was very striking. His confidence and mannerisms made him appear to be the type of person that the doctor cared not to trifle with. "Nothing. We tried everything. Hypnosis, breathing, sedation, restraints. None of it worked. Time was the only thing that would do the trick. We just had to let him calm down on his own," explained the doctor. "What about his family and friends?" asked another general. "I haven't seen Sam since his mother and father were killed in a fire. I know nothing about his friends currently. However, when he was in sessions with me, he often spoke of a friend named Frank. I'm terribly sorry, but I don't know his last name." "We do," said the final general at the table. He opened a manila folder that was laying on the table in front of him. He slid the picture of Frank's dead body across the table to the doctor. "That is Frank," the general said with confidence. "He died last night, not too far from here." "Is that a bullet wound to his head, General?" asked the doctor. "The details of Frank Saunter's death have been classified, Dr. Wallace. Truth be told, we need any information you can give us to stop more innocent people from dying." "I'm afraid there isn't much I can help you gentlemen with. I will say this, though. If you're confronting Sam and you use force, he'll retaliate with force. If you anger him, you run the risk of unleashing Malice. If what I saw in those videotapes is any indication of what he is capable of, releasing that monstrosity is probably the last thing you want to do." "Thank you for your time, Doctor. Please see my assistant on the way out," said Kane. As the doctor left the room and the door closed behind him, the conversation took a very dark turn. "I'm not quite sure I know what to say, Mr. Kane," said one of the generals. "When we agreed to this little experiment of yours, it was to see if we could splice the abilities of that flower into the DNA of soldiers. But what happened last night was both a phenomenal success and a colossal blunder, all at the same time." Another of the generals chimed in. "The power that young man displayed was far beyond anything ever seen by anyone in this room. But I don't remember clearing any human trials, and I damn sure didn't clear the deaths of those soldiers down in that damn hole," he barked. "Gentlemen," said Kane with the most confident, ass-kissing voice possible, "this was not a test. We had no idea that these young men were going to break in last night, let alone that they would even know where it was, or even that there was anything there. They obviously had insight into what it was and how to get it. I'm willing to bet that they were tipped off by one of the soldiers that you placed in the test site." The third general leaped out of his chair and barked, "Are you suggesting that one of those soldiers was committing treason? Those were damn fine men that we assigned down in that pit, and now we're going to be giving flags to their mothers and wives, you pompous son of a bitch." Kane could practically see the steam rising from the general's head. It was merely a suggestion to explain the impossible. I truly have no idea how they knew what was going on. I've had a team of my top minds down there all night trying to figure out exactly how he was able to do what he did. I speak for all of us when I say I would like to see this test site and get a look at it myself. Also, I can't believe that this guy is a total hermit. He has got to have some family or friends, maybe a romantic interest. Let's get everything we can from the NSA and track down a point of contact," one of the generals stated. "Wasn't there a soldier that survived this bloodbath intact? Let's get him front and center to answer a few questions." Kane cleared his throat and took a moment to compose himself. It was apparent that he was repressing his true response. These generals were important to his research and his company's geopolitical standing. Composure was of the utmost importance. "We can most certainly visit the site. I will have a car meet you downstairs. I will need to change my clothes. This suit is quite expensive, and the site is less than acceptable for this ensemble." Kane casually excused himself from the room and breathed a slight sigh of relief as the door closed behind him. He didn't care about the suit he was wearing. He had enough money to burn a $5,000 suit every day for the next 100 years and not see a dent in his bank account. He needed to move his people out and make sure that the site was still as intact as possible. He was elated at the course that the conversation had taken. He needed the military to accelerate the process. Sam was not quite up to his standards that he was hoping for. The young man that went on a high-speed chase through the streets was far from what he expected. Sam was going to need a bit more encouragement, and nothing says encouragement like a soldier with a gun.